Hey guys, Chris here, founder of Rooted Music. Guys, at Rooted, our goal is to help you learn to play the music that you love by coaching you on the why and not just the what. And we're going to do just that in today's tutorial. But before we do, I'd love for you to subscribe to this channel here so you don't miss out on any of the new worship tutorials that we have for you. And I'd also love for you to check out the links in the description of this video where you can download our chord chart to this song for free, and also where you can learn more worship songs just like this for just $1 for the first 30 days. Check out those links and let's go ahead and dive into the video.
Hey everyone, this is JT with Rooted Music, here with you guys today for an advanced piano tutorial of the song Oh Praise the Name by Hillsong Worship, and it is from their Open Heaven River Wild album. And by the time we get to the end of this video today, you're going to know everything you need to know to play Oh Praise the Name. And this song is an incredible song. It's a song we've been singing in churches for several years now, and we'll continue to sing this song for years to come because it's an incredible song that just details the Easter account of how Jesus died on the cross, rose from the grave, and then ultimately will come back to this earth again soon. And it's just a powerful, powerful worship song rooted in that truth. So like I said, by the time we get to the end of this video today, you're going to know everything you need to know to play the song. But before we dive headfirst into this song, we're going to look at a few things that's going to make learning the song so much easier. So here we're going to start with the key, and we are in the key of C major for Oh Praise the Name, and that's really convenient because the key of C is the easiest one to play on the piano because we're only playing on the white keys. So we have the scale, or the notes of the key of C, listed right here. So let's go ahead and play through that scale one time. So we have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then C. So we always start our scale and finish with the same note. Now, if you look in the lower right-hand corner of the webpage where you're watching this video, you're going to see that we have the natural number chart and the chord chart attached. So it's up to you if you'd rather read in natural numbers or if you'd rather read the letter names of the chords and notes. I'll be reading off the natural number chart today for this video, but I'll be referring to both as we go along. So let's go ahead and build this scale in natural numbers now just to make sure we're on the same page. So with natural numbers, all we do is we replace the letter names of the scale and insert numbers instead. So C is 1, D is 2, E is 3, F is 4, G is 5, A is 6, B is 7, and because C was 1 at the beginning, it's going to be 1 again at the end. Very good. Let's go through that one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. And the natural number names, or the numbers we assign to the notes of the scale, apply to the individual notes as well as the chords that are built on those notes. So C is the first note of the scale, but also our C major chord would be our 1 chord in natural numbers. All right, so now we've looked at the scale. Let's go ahead and go through the song. We're going to scroll through this number chart really quick and see if we can find all the unique chords we need to know. So we have a 1 chord, which is C, a 3 minor, which is E minor. We have a 4 chord, which is F. Keep going here. We have a 5 chord, which is G. We have a 6 minor chord, or A minor. We have a 1 over 3, or C over E. So let's keep going and see what we have. So nothing new here in verse 2. Come up to the chorus here. 1, 4, 1 here. We have a 5 suspended chord, or G suspended. And that should be it. So we have 7 total chords that we need to know to play Oh Praise the Name. So now what we're going to do is we're going to build these chords, talk through them so you know everything you need to know to play them. And by learning the chords on the front end, it's going to make playing it so much easier when we actually get to the song and we're not caught off guard by a chord that we haven't seen yet in the song. So we're going to take a few moments here, get these chords figured out, how to play them exactly the way we want to, and it's going to make playing the song so much easier. All right, so now let's go ahead and build these chords in ascending scale order. And when we're playing the chords in the block chord style off the chord chart for this song, we're going to be playing what we call triads, or chords of 3 notes in our right hand. And I'll be playing an octave of the root note in the left hand. I think that just rounds out the sound, provides that nice low end on the piano there. But let's go ahead and talk about what a triad is. So a triad, like I said, is a chord built of 3 notes. And every triad has the same 3 notes. We have the root, the third, and the fifth. And so we call the root, or the first note of the triad, the root, because it is the foundation of the chord. All of the other notes in this chord are built off of the root. So we have C as our root, then the middle note of our triad is what we call the third, and it's called the third because the distance from root to third is the interval of a third. And we know it's a third because we can count the number of letters in this interval. So from C to E, we have C, D, E, 3 letters that live in between C and E here, and so that's why it's the third. And then the top note of our triad, in this case is G for a C major chord, is called the fifth because just like how we counted our third, we have 5 letters between C and G. So that's why it's the fifth. So every triad, or every chord we're playing, will have a root, third, and a fifth. Good, so now let's go ahead and build these chords. So we kind of already did it, but we'll go through it again just to make sure we're on the same page. C major, we have C is the root, E is the third, G is our fifth. Add the left hand. There we go, that's C, or our 1 chord. Next we have a C over E, or 1 over 3, which we find like here in this chorus. We have a 1 over 3 here, C over E, and this is what we call a slash chord. And what we do with slash chords is that each one of these letters or numbers tells us a really important thing. What comes before the slash tells us what we're playing in our right hand. What comes after the slash tells us what we're playing in the left hand. So for a 1 over 3 or C over E chord, I'm going to play that same C triad that I just played. C is the root, E is the third, G is the fifth. But instead of an octave of C in my left hand, I'm going to play E in the left hand, just like that. So I have my 1 chord over the third note of the scale, or a C chord over E, just like that. Very good. That's C over E, or 1 over 3. Next, we have E minor, or our 3 minor chord, and we have E is the root, G is the third, B is the fifth. Add the left hand, and there we go. That's E minor, or our 3 chord. Next, we have our 4 chord, or F, and I'm going to move down an octave here. So we have F is the root, A is the third, and C is the fifth. And there we go. That's F, or our 4 chord. Next, we have G, or our 5 chord. So G is the root, B is the third, D is the fifth. Add the left hand. There we go. Next, we have a G suspended chord, or a 5 suspended chord. And on any suspensions, all we do is we're going to take the third note of our triad, and we're going to raise it a half step, just like that. So regardless of what chord you're playing, if you see a suspension, more likely than not, you're going to take this third note of the triad here, and you're going to raise it a half step. So in this case, instead of playing G, B, D, we're going to play G, C, D, just like that. And suspensions are really helpful because it helps generate some man-made tension in the chords that's easily resolved, just like that. So to resolve a suspension, usually the very next chord we'll play is just a regular 5 chord that moves down like that. And most of the times also when we have suspended chords, they're going to be our 5th chord in our scale. So good, so that's G, and then G suspended right there, or our 5 chord, and 5 suspended. And then the last chord we have is our A minor, or our 6th chord, and A is the root, C is the third, E is the fifth. Add the left hand, and there we go. That's A minor, or our 6th chord. Now let's talk about chord inversions and how I'm going to use them for the rest of this video, because I think it makes playing the song a lot more efficient and a lot easier. So I'm going to show you the inversions that I'm going to use. You don't have to. You could play all of these chords in root position, meaning that the root is the lowest note in the right hand. But I do think to become a really great worship piano player, being able to see inversions and play them on the piano is really helpful. So let's talk through what inversions are. So inversions are simply where we play a chord, it's the same notes, but we're playing them in a different order. So we'll go back to our C or our 1 chord here. And this is what we call root position, because the root, or the namesake of the chord, is the lowest note I'm playing in the right hand. But what happens if I take the C and play it up here? So I have C, E, G instead. The notes are in a different order, but it's still C, E, G. It's still a 1 chord. It's still a C chord, but now the E, or the third of the chord, is on the bottom. We call this first inversion, just like that. But I could also take the E and move it up here and play C, E, G up here like this. This is what we call second inversion, because the 5th of the chord is now the lowest note in my right hand. Still a C chord, because it's still C, E, G, but we've played them in a different order. So let's review that again. We got root position with root on the bottom, first inversion where the third of the chord's on the bottom, and we have second inversion where the 5th of the chord is on the bottom, just like that. Good. Now I'm going to show you the inversions that I'm going to play, just because I think it makes it a lot easier. And when I play piano, especially if I'm playing off of a chord chart and playing in the block chord style, I really like to keep my right hand in the middle C region of the piano, especially if I'm playing by myself. I think that just sounds great. There's nothing wrong with playing chords up here, playing this, but I think sometimes it can sound a little bit too much like a music box if you're playing really high up by yourself. So I kind of prefer this middle C region, and then obviously the left hand kind of filling out that bass end of the sound. So very good. So let's go ahead and go through the inversions that I think are going to be helpful, and these are the inversions that I'll be using for the rest of this video. So here's our 1 chord, and we're going to play this in second inversion. So I'm going to take the G and move it down here. So I've got G, C, E, just like this. So this is our C chord in second inversion. Now for C over E, it's going to be the same thing. We're going to leave our second inverted C chord, or second inversion of our C chord right here, and just move our left hand from C to E, just like that. So that's how I'm going to play C over E, or 1 over 3. Then for our E minor, I'm going to keep this one in first inversion. So here's our E minor triad, E, G, and B. I'm going to move the G and the B down, so we'll have E, G, B, and play it in first inversion, just like that. So that's our 3 chord, or E minor. Then our 4 chord, or F, going to play this one in root position. Root's on the bottom here. For our G chord, also going to play this one in root position with the root right there. G suspended, also root position. And then A minor, we're also going to play in root position, just like that. So now here's an example of why inversions are helpful. So let's go to our C chord, or our 1 chord here in second inversion. And we can see we have a spot here in the chorus where we have our 1 chord, or C. And then the very next chord that we have is our 6, or our A minor, right here. And so we go from our C to A minor, or 1 to 6. And in order for me to do that in root position, I'm going to have to hop from C down to A minor, like that, which is okay. We can totally do that, and that's totally fine. But if I'm playing second inversion, right here, I only have to move the G to A, and that's it. So here's C chord, A minor, because I've got 2 notes in common. I got C and E in common, and that makes it really efficient. And as a worship leader, if I'm singing as well as playing piano, I'm not always going to be able to look at my hands all the time to hop around in root position. So that's why I think playing inversions can be helpful, because we don't have to move our right hand quite as much. So again, C, A minor, just like that. And so that's why I think playing with inversions can definitely be helpful. Like I said, if you want to play in root position, by all means, go ahead. That's awesome. But if you want to try playing inversions, go ahead. I think you'll find that it makes it a lot easier. All right, so now we've talked through inversions. Let's go ahead and just review those chords one more time, and I'm going to play them in the inversions I'll be using for the rest of this video. So we have C, or our 1 chord, C over E, or 1 over 3, E minor, or our 3 chord. Then we have F, which is our 4 chord, G, which is our 5 chord, G suspended, which is 5 suspended, and then A minor, or our 6 chord. And there we go. Those are the 7 chords we need to know to play Oh, Praise the Name. And if that was a little tough or a little challenging for you, definitely go back, watch that section again, get familiar with those chords, because the more familiar you are with playing the chords, the easier playing the song is going to be when we actually go through each section of the song. Also, in our piano tutorial library, we have an informational video on the key of C that's really awesome that you could definitely check out as well. In that video, we're going to talk more about the natural number system. How do we know which chords are major and minor in the key? How do we know that the key of C has no sharps and flats? Like, how do we come to that conclusion? You're going to learn so much more that we could just cover in this video today. Also, one thing that's really cool about watching that video, it's pretty short, only about 20 to 25 minutes, but you're going to learn principles of functional harmony that apply in every key for every song. So definitely, if you struggled with this, building these chords here, feel free, pause this video, go check out that informational video on the key of C major, and then come back, and I guarantee you this will make a lot more sense. Great, so now let's go on to the rhythmic aspects of the song we need to talk about, which are the time signature and tempo, and then we'll dive into the song. So our time signature for Oh Praise the Name is 4/4, and the time signature tells us 2 really important things. The first number always tells us how many beats are in a measure, so we have 4 beats in a measure. The second number tells us what kind of note is considered to be 1 beat. So because we have a 4 there, that means a quarter note is equal to 1 beat. So if we were looking at the sheet music of this song, we would have 4 quarter notes worth of time in every measure. So we're going to be counting to 4 a lot. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you don't know what a measure is simply the way that we break a really big song down into smaller pieces. It provides a nice rhythmic framework for us to work within. Kind of like how a really long book can be broken up into chapters, we can think of measures as the chapters of the song. And the measures, we start with beat 1 right at the beginning of the song, and we just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, with no pauses or breaks until we get to the end of the song. So the measures just smoothly go from one right into the next, and the tempo determines how fast or how slow we count through those measures. And so our tempo here for Oh Praise the Name is 72.5 beats per minute, which is really, really specific. Yes, we can have a half of a beat per minute. So this is a really, really precise tempo. Sometimes our metronomes may not give us the option to do a half of a beat, so you could practice it at 72 if you want to kind of play along with a metronome, or 73. So you'll be close, but it won't be exact, but that's okay. Just know that the recording is at 72.5 beats per minute, which is a little bit on the slower end. The song has a good energy. It definitely doesn't feel like it drags, but we do not want to rush through this song at all. Good, then we come down here to our song order, or the outline of the song. We have our intro, verse 1, verse 2, chorus, verse 3, chorus, verse 4, 2 instrumentals, 2 choruses, we tag, and then we have the end of the song there. So it's a pretty straightforward song. It doesn't have a ton of sections, and a lot of the sections are fairly similar, so we can definitely, we'll be able to kind of gloss over some of them as we move forward through this song. Great, so now we've talked about our key, and we know the scale, we know the chords, we've talked about inversions, we talked about the time signature, the tempo, and the song order, or the form of the song. We're ready to go. So let's go ahead and scroll on down, and we're going to skip over the intro for right now, because I do want to talk about, if this is your first video with us, maybe you've never read off of a chord chart or a number chart. I want to make sure we're on the same page when it comes to that. So we're going to come to verse 1. And as you can see here, you're going to see some numbers here, or letters if you're looking at the chord chart there. And you're going to see them placed in very specific spots in relationship to the lyrics. And what these are what we call our chord changes. And a chord chart's really awesome because it gives us the lyrics of the song and it tells us when to change from one chord to the next. So when we're going through this, as we sing or say the words, we start on one chord and we go to the next. So I'll show you the first couple lines on how we would read through this. So here's verse 1. 1, 2, 3. I cast my mind to Calvary, where Jesus bled and died for me. Just like that. So as you can see here, I played my one chord or C on the word mind, and I held that until we got to the word bled here, and I played my 5 chord or G on that, and then I went to the 6 or the A minor there on the word for. So that's how we read through a chord chart, and it's really awesome just because, again, if we know the words of the song and we know the chords, we can just play it and we'll be in sync every time. But the one thing about a chord chart that is a little unfortunate is that it doesn't really rhythmically tell me exactly how long to play each chord. And so if I don't know the lyrics of the song really, really well, it may be a little hard to follow at times. And so at Rooted, we've provided what we call a rhythm chart. So if you look in the lower right-hand corner of the web page where you're watching this video, you can see that we have a rhythm chart, and it's in natural numbers. So these natural numbers apply to every key. So whether you're playing the song in the key of C, the key of G, the key of F, doesn't matter, whatever key you're playing in, these natural numbers will apply. And what it does is we're breaking it down if we wanted to count our way through it instead. That's how we could do that. So here in verse 1, like we just played, we played the first 4 measures of verse 1 from the chord chart. You can see that I'm going to play that 1 chord for 2 full measures. Then I go to my 5 chord for a measure, and then the 6 minor or A minor here for a measure. So if I was counting through it, I'd play like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, just like that. And there we go. That's how we count through the rhythm charts. Also note that if you see a number in italics above a chord, that simply means that that's the beat we're changing on. So like here in this last measure of verse 1, I would play my E minor. I would play 1, 2, 3, 4. So that tells me I need to switch to my 4 chord here on beat 3. And there we go. That's how we read the rhythm chart. So again, that's down there in the lower right-hand corner of the web page where you can use this if you'd rather count your way through it. But what's really cool about it is that this is really the opposite side of the same coin. Like this, reading this and reading the chord chart, it's going to get you the same result, just whether you want to play based on playing the chord changes in relationship to the lyrics, or if you'd rather just count your way through it. But it's 2 sides of the same coin, which is really cool. And to be honest, I use both. Like I'll use rhythm charts sometimes, I'll use chord charts sometimes. It's great to be able to read both because there's some songs where it's a little tricky, and we do have to count our way through some sections that are, especially when we're playing on the ands of beats and things like that. This song, not as much because a lot of our chord changes are on beat 1, so it's a little simpler, but definitely it's good to be able to do both. So we definitely recommend you check out that rhythm chart as well as the chord chart or Nashville number chart. Like I said, I'll be reading off the Nashville number chart the rest of the way, but like I said, feel free to check that out as well. All right, so now let's go up to the intro here, and let's talk through how do we play through a section that doesn't have lyrics if we're reading off the chord chart. And here at Rooted, we got a little system that makes instrumental sections really easy. So you can see we have 4 groups of numbers, or you would have the letter names of the chords if you're reading off the chord chart. And each one of those that's separated by a space indicates 1 measure. So our intro here has a total of 4 measures. And then the chords that share a dash indicate that they are both played within the same measure. So if I was playing this intro, I'd play it like this. I'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like that. Generally speaking, when the chords are sharing a measure, generally they're split 50-50 in some worship songs. In others, that's not the case. So definitely we can check our rhythm chart and see in the intro, yep, we have our 1 chord or C for a full measure. Then in the measure where we have the 2 chords sharing the measure, we have our E minor or 3 chord for 2 beats and our 4 chord or F for the other 2 beats. So yep, so we're going to split that 50-50. Each one of those gets 2 beats, but no, in those sections we can always refer to our rhythm chart and just verify and make sure those get 2 beats each. Great, so that's how we play through the intro. All right, so now we've talked about how to read the chord charts and the rhythm charts. Let's go ahead now, and we're going to go section by section through the song. We're going to break it down and show you everything you need to know. All right, so we're going to go back to the intro. I kind of just did it, but I'll go through the whole thing here. So here's the intro. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like that. Very good. So like I said, our intro is 4 total measures. We got a measure of C, or a 1 chord. Then this measure, we have 2 beats each for our E minor and F, or 3 and 4 chords. Then we go and just do that little group of 2 measures again. We have C or our 1 chord for a whole measure. We have E minor or our 3 chord for 2 beats, and then we have our 4 chord or F there for 2 beats as well. Very good. Now, one last thing to check out in the lower right-hand corner of the web page where you're watching this video, we also have attached the sheet music. So if you want to play the note-for-note piano part from this song, you can check that out, because we're just playing off the block chord style here off the chord charts. But if you flip over to the sheet music, you can see everything that we are doing here, and it lines up exactly the same. So we have our C for 1 measure, E minor for 2 beats, F for 2 beats, just like we had in the intro. Also note that when we're playing that E minor chord off the block chord style, we're going to play like a true E minor here. When it comes to the E minor part that they're playing in the sheet music here, it's going to sound a little different here when we play this E minor in the sheet music, because the C is here, and that's just going to give us just a little different character on this chord here. So generally when you're playing E minor in this song off of the sheet music, you're going to be playing a G, B, and C here in your right hand instead of G, B, E. So just be aware of that. But you can play either way. This sounds great. This also sounds great for what we're doing, because we're going to that 4 chord or that F right there later on. So it's up to you what you want to do there. But again, we don't have really anything super challenging here in the sheet music to this point. Just a lot of whole notes, half notes, really just playing the chord changes to that point. Great, so now let's come on down to verse 1, and let's talk through it. I'm going to play through it, and then we'll break it down. So here it is, 1, 2, 3. I cast my mind to Calvary, where Jesus bled and died for me. I see his wounds, his hands, his feet, my Savior on that cursed tree. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Good, and that's verse 1. So verse 1 has a total of 9 measures. Most of the time, our song sections are usually multiples of 4. In this case, we're going to have a lot of sections throughout the song that have 9 measures, just because we have that little E minor F on the end of each section. So that gives us 9 total measures there. So we start with our 1 chord or C on the word mind. We're going to play that for a total of 2 total measures there. Then we have our 5 chord or G on bled for a measure. Then we have our 6 chord or A minor here on the word 4 for a measure. Then we have our 4 chord or F on the word wounds for 1 full measure. Then we have our 1/3 or C over E on the word his for a full measure. Then we have our 5 or G on the word on for a measure. And then we have our 1 chord or C on the said of cursed tree there for 1 full measure. Then here's that 9th measure, that extra measure of our section. And we have our 3 or E minor for 2 beats and our 4 or F for 2 beats as well. And we can check over the rhythm chart, and it's exactly the same thing. 2 measures of our 1 chord, measure of 5, measure of 6 chord, measure of 4, measure of 1/3, a measure of 5, a measure of 1, and then 2 beats each for our 3 and 4 chords, just like that. So very good. Now let's come over to the sheet music and just make sure there's nothing crazy going on here. Also, you can see in the sheet music we have these chord changes listed above here. Those chord changes are the exact same chord changes you would see whether from the rhythm chart or from the chord chart as well. So those are lined up exactly the same. So we're playing just a lot of whole notes here in verse 1, and we just got those half notes at the end. So nothing too crazy there. You may want to brush up on reading notes below treble clef, because our left hand is definitely playing down in this region here, and so we're using a few of those lines and spaces below treble clef there. So just make sure you're on the right notes there. You can also use these chord changes listed up here as a little guide. So, you're playing a C chord here. So if you know your C chord, C, E, G, that's probably a good place to start. And then you can verify the notes down below. But great, let's go ahead and move on to verse 2. And what's really cool about this song is, like I mentioned earlier, there's some repeating sections that are really similar. So for the sake of time, we're going to be able to skip over some of these, because verse 2 is the exact same as verse 1. The only thing that's different are the lyrics. So for the sake of time, we'll skip over that. from the chord chart playing in the block chord style. Let's scroll down in the sheet music and just make sure everything's good. Nothing super difficult we need to explain. And it's going to be pretty similar to what we did in verse 1. So for the sake of time, we'll skip over that as well. And let's come up to the chorus now. I'm going to play through the chorus. I'll say the lyrics, and then we'll break it down. So here it is. 1, 2, 3. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise, O Lord our God. And just like that. Very good. So we have 9 total measures in this chorus as well. So let's go through it. We have our 1 chord or C on praise. We're going to play that for 1 measure. Then we have our 4 chord or F on the word Lord for 2 beats. Then we have our 1 chord or C on God for 2 beats. So these share the second measure here. Then our 3rd measure, we have our A minor or 6 chord on praise for a full measure. Then our 4th measure here is our 5 suspended or G suspended on ever of forever, and that gets 2 beats. And then on more of forevermore, we go back to just our regular 5. So we're 5 suspended or G suspended to 5 or G chord there. Then in our 5th measure, we have our 1 over 3 or C over E on endless for a full measure. Then we go to our 4 chord on sing or F chord on sing for 2 beats. Then we have our 6 minor, A minor on praise for 2 beats. Then we come down here in the 7th measure. We have 3 chords here. So we have our 4 chord or F for 2 beats on Lord. Then we have our 5 suspended or G suspended on the other Lord for 1 beat. Then we go to our 5 chord or G on our for 1 beat. Then we have our 1 chord or C on God for a full measure, and then we finish up with our extra measure with our 3 minor or E minor for 2 beats and F or our 4 chord for the other 2 beats. So 9 total measures in the chorus. Like I said, we have that extra little measure there. That's kind of our little bridge from one section to the next. All right, and there we go. That was the chorus, all 9 measures of the chorus. So now let's go ahead and look at the sheet music, make sure we don't have anything super crazy going on that we need to talk about. And again, here, like I said, the song's pretty simple. It's a fairly simple piano part, so we're going to be playing pretty much whole notes and half notes, really just playing the chord changes to this point. And here's the exact voicings and exact inversions that they're using on that chart. Also remember, we have that E minor there that has the C in there instead of the E. So just be aware of that, but everything else should be good to go there. So let's move on down to verse 3. And again, like I talked about earlier, the song is fairly repetitive, and verse 3 is going to be the exact same as verses 1 and 2, except for the final measure. So at the end of verse 3, everything plays the exact same way as verses 1 and 2, just different lyrics. But at the end, when we get to the angels roar for Christ the King, we have 2 measures of our 1 chord or C here instead of going to the E minor and F or the 3 and 4 chords there. So instead of doing where we split that up into 2 beats each, we're just going to hold that C chord. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, just like that. But otherwise, everything else is the same. So for the sake of time, we'll move on from that. Let's look here in the sheet music just to make sure. So here in verse 3, we are starting to play quarter notes. So really kind of rhythmically help the band build up that big section as we're building into that chorus. And just note we have those 2 measures of C or our 1 chord there. Good, so let's move on back to the chord chart and let's keep going. So now we're to the next section, which is another chorus. And this chorus is also going to play the exact same way as the previous chorus did, except for the final measure as well. And just like in verse 3, instead of having the E minor and F or the 3 and 4 chord at the end in that final measure, and we just replace that with a 1 chord or C for that extra measure, we're going to do the same thing here on this chorus as well. So we get to the end, we're going to go, O Lord, our God, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, just like that. So we have 2 measures of C or our 1 chord there at the end of the chorus, but everything else is the same. Let's check out the sheet music, and we're going to find we're keeping that quarter note pattern going in the right hand with kind of the chord changes in the left hand. And then we'll see at the end of that chorus as well, 2 measures of C there. So nothing too crazy going on in the sheet music there. So let's move on now to verse 4. And verse 4 is going to play the exact same way that verse 3 did, which is also very similar to verses 1 and 2. The only thing that was different between verses 1 and 2 and 3 was that extra measure of our 1 chord, which we have here as well. So verse 4 is going to play the exact same way that verse 3 did. We still have 9 total measures. We have those 2 measures of our 1 chord or C at the end. Let's go to the sheet music. Verse 4 this is really where the band has kind of dropped out a little bit, and it's just really kind of subdued here in this section, and it'll keep building back up later in the song. So we're just playing a lot of whole notes here, and even in some spots, we're kind of just playing very bare chords, like this A minor here. We're not even playing a full triad. We're just playing just kind of root and third there with a single note in the left hand. So it's really, really subdued in this part of the song, but like I said, it will build back up as we go. And there we go, got 2 measures of C or a 1 chord at the end of verse 4. All right, so now let's come on down to the instrumental, and the instrumental is really easy for us to play in the block chord style because it's going to play the exact same way that the chorus does. I'll go through it one time just to show you and kind of count our way through it, but it's going to be very similar to the chorus. So here it is, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The only thing that's different here in the instrumental from that chorus that we have been playing earlier is we only have 8 total measures here instead of 9. We don't have 2 measures of our 1 chord at the end. It's just 1 measure, and then we go into the next one. So let's check out the sheet music here, and we're really just playing the chord changes here through this first instrumental. So you might hear the audience singing along with the chorus here with those lyrics over the top, but because the worship leaders aren't singing that yet, that's why we refer to it as an instrumental. But everything is pretty similar to what we've been playing previously, so looks good there. And then, as you can see, we're going to repeat that instrumental, and it's also the exact same. So these 2 instrumental sections play the same way. And again, you're going to hear the crowd singing along there, but because the worship leader isn't officially singing there, that's why we still call it an instrumental. And let's check the second one out in the sheet music. Now here in the second instrumental, we're going to start building a little bit more, playing quarter notes in the right hand and then half notes in the left hand, just to kind of help rhythmically drive the band as we're building it back up. But nothing too complicated there. So now we'll move on to the next section, which is a chorus, and the worship leader has hopped back in here with the crowd singing along, and this chorus is going to play the exact same way that the instrumental did. We have 8 total measures. The previous choruses, sometimes we had that extra 9th measure on the end. This one's going to play the exact same way, but there's no 9th measure here. So we just finish on, O Lord, our God, 2, 3, 4, and then we go into the next one. So just 8 measures in this section here, but everything else aside from that is the same. And this is full band, so you can, if you're playing in the block chord style and you want to play those quarter notes in your right hand, feel free. The chord chart and natural number chart, like I mentioned earlier, are really awesome because they help us figure out where the chord changes happen in relation to the lyrics. But they don't always give us the full picture when it comes to how to play rhythmically, and that really kind of gives us some freedom on how we can play. So if you're playing with a worship team, this is the big section of the song, so you may want to put that quarter note pattern in the right hand there versus like verse 4 where it's a little more subdued and you're playing whole notes. So that's really up to your discretion and your what you're doing there. If you're playing by yourself, you can feel free to mix that up however you want. And that's kind of the beauty of playing off a chord chart, is that it gives us that freedom rhythmically as long as our chord changes line up. We can kind of do what we want there. When we look at the chorus here in the sheet music, we're playing that quarter note in the right hand, and basic just octaves here in the left hand. We are a few ledger lines below the bass clef, so also just make sure you're good on reading those. You can use the chord changes at the top to kind of be a reference for you because they're mostly going to be octaves of those root notes there. Very good. All right, so we just finished that big chorus and the band's built back up and everybody's in. We're playing those quarter notes in the right hand in the sheet music. We're going to scroll down and we're going to have a repeat of that chorus as well. So we're playing 2 choruses in a row here at the end of the song, and everything about this is going to be the same, except if you look for the last line here, we usually end on a C or a 1 chord here on God. Here we have a 6th minor or an A minor here. So I'm going to play this last line here, and I'll show you how we play that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, O Lord, our God, 2, 3, 4. So that's the 8th measure of this chorus, and then we're going to tag on the end here, and we add this last line again for 2 total measures here of a tag on the end, and a tag is simply repeating the end of a section without repeating the whole section. So we're just doing the last line instead of the whole chorus again. And then this is going to play the way that it usually did in other parts, like in the instrumental and the other choruses where we finish, O Lord, our God, just like that. And then you see the end here, that means we're going to hold that 1 chord or C, and we can hold that as the band kind of fades out, or if you're playing with the recording as that kind of fades out as well. Good. So we have these 2 extra measures on this tag here at the end. Just know that in this final chorus here, instead of playing our 1 chord, we are playing that 6 or the A minor there. All right, so as we come through this final chorus here, we're going to see that we have that A minor here on that 8th measure for, like we normally have the C there, just like we talked about earlier. We got the A minor there on that 8th measure, and then here we have the tag, the last 2 measures here. We have the F for 2 beats, G suspended for 1 beat, regular G for 1 beat, and then we finish with our C or 1 chord here. Also note that in the final couple of beats here, these G suspended, G, C chords here, those last 2 beats and the last chord there total, there is a little bit of a slowing down there in the recording. So if you're playing to the metronome, you might finish just a little bit ahead of the band. So if you're playing off the sheet music here, you can do something like this where you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, just like that, and kind of slow it down a little bit. Or if you're playing in the block chord style, you could do 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, just like that. So it's really up to you if how you want to do that, but just be aware of that. In a live setting, if you want to just go through, like if you're playing with a band, you can certainly do that. But just note, if you're playing with the recording, they do slow down just a little bit there on those last couple beats. And there we go. That is the end of Oh, Praise the Name. And now you know everything you need to know to play this song. We've talked through how to rhythmically look at it. We've talked through how to make sure we know all the chords. We've looked at it from a chord chart, a number chart. We talked about the rhythm chart if you want to count your way through it. We've talked about the sheet music, which we provided if you want to play the note-for-note piano part from this song. So you are ready to go to play this song. Now, if you look below this video, you're going to see that there's a comment box there where you can ask a question. If you're watching this video and something didn't quite make sense, please let us know. We're here to help you. We want to help you. You'll never know the answer to your questions unless you ask. So please ask us in the comment box. Also, if you watch this video and you're crushing it, everything made sense, and you can play the song really well, please tell us that as well. We love to hear the positive feedback as well.
Guys, thanks so much for joining us today in this tutorial. I hope you really enjoyed it and learned a lot through it. Make sure to subscribe to our channel here so you don't miss any of the new tutorials we have coming up. And make sure to check out those links in the description of this video so you don't miss out on the chord chart and you don't miss out on more and more worship song coaching for just $1 for the first 30 days. Check out those links and we'll see you soon.